Welcome into the Cowboys Report live for the final time before this year's 2024 NFL Draft, which we will also, of course, be live for. I'm Tom Downey, producer Chris, once again behind the scenes for today's live show. The pinned comment as we move inside of a week away from this year's draft, we are days away now. Are you mad at the Cowboys over their offseason so far? Y for yes, N for no. Get those votes in for me in the comments section. 80%, I'll also vote in the pin poll too, of course. 80% of the pin poll voting yes. 20% voting no. Okay. Little surprised it's that many no's, frankly. I thought it'd be a 85 to 90% there. Vince says yes. Steven says no. Jeremillo, I think I pronounced that correctly. If not, sorry. Says yes. Brandon says yes. Steve-O says yes. Corey Babcock says yes, and hell yes, by the way. I am unhappy with this gone. There were two routes could have gone. Could have been aggressive. Could have rebuilt. And the path was, let's just run it back. And also be a little bit worse. I don't get that idea at all. Y for yes, N for no. J. Higgs says yes. Ecuador Man says yes. Jermaine Hudson says yes. Douglas saying yes. Tommy says they fumbled the offseason. I'd agree. From We Don't Wife These 304s, back again with a hypothetical. Would you rather listen to a Cowboys podcast with Chris Broussard and Mike Tannenbaum or a political podcast with Mark Levin and Chris Cuomo? That's how you pronounce Cuomo, right? Who's Mark Levin? I'm showcasing how little I pay attention to politics. Who is Mark Levin? I mean, I'm going to have to Google Mark Levin here. I often stick to sports. Nickname the Great One? I'm out. It's never a good sign. I hate Broussard. He doesn't have any original thoughts. I think I go Broussard Tannenbaum. It'd be a lot of rage listening, but again, I don't have good answers here on the who's the political people. All right, we are doing this again for today's live show. The largest individual super chat picks a segment for a show, of course, after the NFL draft. So the Monday after, we'll be back live a week from now. So you can pick a non-draft related segment, and you can make that decision, after the draft as well. So two-way tie right now between We Don't Wife These 304s and Jimmy Productions. What do you think the Cowboys draft board looks like? Who do you think the top guys on their board once the 24th pick is here? Stay tuned. We will basically do that as part of a segment today. I'll kind of break it down by tiers with what I think, and also just kind of try to rank them as best as possible. It is a guess, of course. I don't think many of us thought they'd have Mozzie Smith and Matthew Bergeron as high as they did. Because when you get outside those first-round picks, it's a weird round 2 class overall. From Not Jeremy Chugs' burner, so we have a three-way tie now. 499 is the number to beat. If you become GM right now, is there anything that could be done to salvage us? And then saying I'm the guy from Dune. By the way, he's not the hero. We do know that, right? He's actually not a good guy. That's kind of the whole point of that. Books and movies. He's not the good guy in the end. Maybe they'll change the ending, but he's not the hero. It would kind of be like me taking over the Cowboys and then I just use it for profit. That's kind of what it ends up being, right? Look, right now you really missed the window to get better this year is the issue. You've kind of wasted an off season already. So I don't know about make you a true contender right now, but I can definitely set you up for more success next in 2025. But this is kind of already a leap year, whatever we want to call it. More supers to come, but today's show is made possible by Game Time. Game Time is the place for last-minute tickets to your next big sporting event, concert, comedy show, whatever. Game Time has you covered. You can go check out some Dallas sports playoffs, hopefully better than that disastrous showing from the Mavericks. They got Cowboys illness and just forgot to show up in the opening playoff game. That was a disaster game, man. Game Time has deals, though, on tickets right to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It is the place to find last-minute seats. And with the way the Mavs played in the first game, maybe you wait till after the second, and maybe the prices drop a little bit for you in the third game. The good news is the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off and free shipping. Or not free shipping, just $20 off, excuse me. That's $20 off with promo code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS. Link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. Appreciate Game Time sponsoring us here at the Cowboys Report. With the $5 flat super chat, everyone else was $4.99. Marcus Arnold now has the lead to pick a segment for next Monday's live show. Because I think we have to think that Zim may have wanted to play with his new toys. I'm not mad at a 12-5 team for not going crazy in free agency. Well, if I actually am a little bit mad because they also didn't do anything to get better. Like, I'm fine in a bubble, like if you just retain your own guys and run it back, but they also lost several key players and didn't do anything to replace them. In a bubble, I get not wanting to pay Tyron at his age. Okay, I get not wanting to pay Biotish that number. I haven't done it either. Armstrong, Pollard. You can't also just get worse on paper and bank on when you have a light draft capital class saving everything. Like, sure, Zim wants to play with his new toys. He got Eric Kendricks. Great. The offense didn't do anything to get better. Like, I think when everyone else does stuff and your two moves are Eric Kendricks and Royce Freeman, like, doesn't really move the needle for me to make me feel better about the way the year ended last year. It's one thing if they had, won 2 playoff games and just run it back, but they got embarrassed. I think that matters. I'm not saying they're a bad team, but they didn't get better. From C1, if Dallas picked Zach Frazier and say he's the best player on the board, would you be mad with the pick? I trust Dallas with first-round offensive linemen. So I have stacked my board officially now. Of note, I hate this round 2 class. I had to put somebody at 30. I'm like, I don't like this at all, but I have to do it. Someone has to be here. I think it's really thin overall, and like in that range. I have Frazier at 34 on my board. So second round grade. I would love a trade down, then draft him if possible. Like if you flip with the Niners and just take him at 31, I'm all for it. But I do think C1 raises a great point. Of all the things that we have been negative about for this team, first round offensive lineman tends to work out pretty damned well for them. So I would be okay with trusting them, giving them more benefit of the doubt than, that injured guy in the second round they always take or the character guy that doesn't always work out. So will Dallas draft Jonathon Brooks? This is a prime candidate for the Cowboys in round 2. D for draft, P for pass. I think we can go ahead and go back to the super chat and then get to the like. Let's get the other build-up questions there. D for draft, P for pass. Like I mentioned, I don't like these second-round guys. I have less than 50 second-round or better grades. It's kind of light for me. I have a cheater 2-3 grade on Brooks. He checked in 54th overall for me. So you're right in that range, although I do have 2 backs ahead of him. I find this class, I love the first round talent. I like the round 1, round 2 talent. I think you got some really intriguing like third round value guys, and even third, fourth round guys. But I think like that early second round range is just a little bit thin for me. D for draft, P for pass. Get those votes in for me in the comments section. As a reminder, the largest super chat total, individual, not literally the opposite of what I said. Individual super chat today, so it's easier on producer Chris to do math and me to explain things. Gets to pick a segment for the Monday after the NFL Draft live show. We are at $5 right now. Marcus Arnold leads the way with a bunch of $4.99s, but Marcus is the only one to put the extra cent in there. So he has the lead for now, and we can go from there in terms of if anyone can catch him or not. We'll announce the winner after the final segment, of course, of today's live show. The goal on every show is to get a 50% like rate. That tends to indicate to YouTube, hey, these people really like what's going on. That is an elite number in terms of ratio. So let's pump those like numbers up because we're only at about 45 right now with 200 people watching, so we're at less than 25%. Let's double that percentage, get us to the 50% mark. If you haven't already, like today's video. It is always beneficial for us, by the way, to get likes on all videos. It just tells YouTube that you like what we're doing. You'll see our stuff more, especially if you don't have the notice turned on to all, and it will be showcased to more people so we can continue to grow here at the Cowboys Report. All right, coming up live here on today's show, we'll run through some Cowboys rumors, heavy draft focus there, no surprise. ESPN has dropped a new 7-round NFL mock draft. We'll break that down for the Cowboys picks. Has a trade, by the way. A mailbag. 2 ways to get on the show. Use hashtag Cowboys or skip the line and super chat. And we'll run through kind of Cowboys draft targets by tier, big board, just names to monitor in round 1. And hopefully it's not a surprise, stunning pick that, we kind of didn't necessarily see coming back-to-back years. Tyler Smith and Mozzie Smith weren't the popular pick mock draft selections, although the guys that we had as the popular picks, even goes for Micah too, ended up going earlier. So we'll see what happens this year. Live show getting started right now. It is NFL Draft Week. If you, like us here at Chat Sports, are excited about what's to come this year for the NFL Draft and all our coverage at the Cowboys Report, then show it by liking today's video right now. Before we get into the show, a quick shout out to Eli Aaron, who did come out on top with the most comments on our video later last week. Appreciate you, Eli, as promised. There's your shout out. Well over 200 comments from Eli, by the way. Let's begin with the round 2 target that has been heavily linked to the Dallas Cowboys. That is Jonathon Brooks, the Texas running back who, most years there's somebody you feel like ends up being a Cowboy. Sometimes it's round 1. Leighton Vander Esch was pretty obvious and telegraphed there. Sam Williams was heavily telegraphed. And Jonathon Brooks might be the guy this year. Adam Schefter, the latest to join the growing buzz of keep an eye on Brooks in Dallas, writing, quotes, had Brooks not torn his right ACL last November, he likely would have been the top running back selected, possibly in the middle or later portion of round 1. Now, his knee injury is expected to push him into the 2nd round. Even in a draft considered subpar at the position, more on that in a moment, some think it would be a surprise if Brooks made it past Dallas's turn at number 56. I don't think this would surprise very many people. I think they'd be like, yep, that makes sense. You have Brooks to Dallas, and that's been a very popular mock draft pick in round 2. They checked off all the boxes, pre-draft visit, brought him in for the medical stuff, et cetera. His team doctor did his surgery. There's a lot of connections from that perspective. And although I don't think Brooks would have been a mid-round 1 pick, had he been healthy, I do think we'd be having a lot of conversation that'd be much more realistic than what it was the last time a Texas back was a first-round pick, which, of course, was Bijan Robinson last year. Bijan was never going to get there in last year's draft. Brooks will be there in round 1, and I think will be there in round 2. There's a real chance that none of the running backs are taken when Dallas is on the clock at pick number 54. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I have Brooks. I have finished my stack and my rankings, and I'm just not going to tweak anything more because I could be tweaking for days on end. Kind of weird phrasing, but you know what I mean. 2nd, 3rd round grade, which ended up ranking about 54th overall, which is higher than like pure 2s, but I don't love the round 2 class that much. It's just kind of thin for me. Number 3 ranked back, so I wouldn't be that mad if it was the pick in round 2. And I think, like many of us, I accept this as a very potential outcome. So prediction time. Will Dallas draft Jonathon Brooks? Y for yes, N for no. Go ahead and sound off for me in the comments section. Let's check in again here on Trey Lance. Stephen Jones offering plenty of praise for the Cowboys' backup quarterback, who still has only done that uniform in an actual game that matters for the 49ers. Here's what Stephen Jones said on Lance. He's done nothing but excite us even more as he's worked here all of last season and the offseason. In terms of his work ethic, his skill level, we're very pleased. He exhibits everything you would think a top 5, top 10 pick would exhibit. He exhibits similar type work ethic to Dak Prescott. Obviously, Trey is a really good athlete, and the most important thing in his arm. He's got a very live arm, very strong arm. He continues to improve with his footwork and his accuracy. For me, these are all platitudes. That's like, it would only be weird if he didn't say that stuff. Like, he's working hard, we like his development. Like, copy-paste that line, change the adjectives for like strong arm to, whatever. Applies to any player, any position. What matters, I think for me, I think for you guys too, for the most part, is the preseason. The preseason is critical for Trey Lance. We have not seen him take a meaningful snap in a Dallas Cowboys jersey. Hasn't happened. I think the preseason, because at minimum, he should look really good in the preseason. If he doesn't, that raises red flags. How are you going to beat up on starters if you're struggling against backups in the preseason? I think there's going to be a ton of reps for Trey Lance come August, and we will see how he looks. And ideally, he looks really good, because otherwise, you kind of feel like you wasted that 4th-round pick. Today's show is made possible by Game Time. Maybe you are worried about the Cowboys quarterback spot long term. You shouldn't have to worry, though, about buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time takes the guesswork out of doing just that. It is easy to find and buy tickets for every type of event in your area. Views from your seat in the venue so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. And always keep an eye out for a zone deal if you can find one. That's when you pick the section and Game Time picks the seats for big-time savings, by the way, in the process. So download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create your account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today for last-minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. That link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. Let's go back to the NFL draft here, and much like running back being a target, linebacker is also a very blatant and obvious focal point for the Cowboys in this year's draft. Here's what Stephen Jones said most recently. Philosophically, I think we'll have more of a 3-linebacker system than a 2-linebacker and 3-safety system. I think the other thing is we'll probably look to be bigger and stronger in the middle. I'll come back to that part about being bigger and stronger in the middle and the linebacker lack of bodies as well. I do want to clarify one thing because Steven's not very good at this. They're still going to use a lot of nickel. I saw the response being they're going to be in base all the time. Like that's not what Steven means. He means when they are in their normal base. I actually call it heavy now because you're in nickel 60 to 70% of the time already. When you're in your heavy/base personnel, it's going to be more of a normal base package and not only utilizing 3 safeties the same way Dan Quinn did, although I would argue that was out of necessity more than anything. Now, the 30 visits are always a good indication of what positions and players the Cowboys are targeting, and they have brought in a ton of linebackers here. Some day 2 most likely targets: Edgerrin Cooper out of A&M, Junior Colson out of Michigan, Peyton Wilson from NC State, Trevin Wallace out of Kentucky. Day 3 targets: Nathaniel Watson, Jordan McGee. Since we filmed our 30-visit tracker, 2 maybe new names. Jalen Ford, per Clarence Hill, is on there. And maybe Tyron Hopper. He had been mentioned briefly by Nick Harris on the draft show. Now, Hopper was also a combine visit or a meeting, so I'm not sure if it just kind of got wires crossed there. But there are open spots, so it's certainly possible from that perspective. I would bet, if not 1, 2, if they double dip in like the day 3 section, I think this team's going to draft a linebacker and or linebackers this year. So with that in mind, what linebacker do you want to draft? Sound off for me in the comment section right now. The reality is this team needs bodies at linebacker because they lose Leighton Vander Esch, sub in Eric Kendricks, and that's it. You get back to Marvin Overshown healthy. You're not going to enter, post-UDFA cycle with 4 linebackers on your roster. I could easily see this team adding 4, both through the undrafted free agency process and through the draft. I think you will see bodies added to this group because there just isn't enough at this time. I also find it funny that this team wants to be bigger and stronger in the middle, and they've done literally nothing to improve their defensive line room so far. You've got 3 picks in the top 150, guys. How are you going to add a linebacker, a running back, an offensive lineman, and a defensive lineman? The math isn't mathing. There's just not enough. There's not enough op picks available here. So I would love to trade down and use one of those extra picks on a defense tackle. I don't love the class. It's a little bit thin. But, are you going to take a 5th-round defensive tackle and say we got better in the middle? I think that's kind of pushing it a little bit. And it's not like there are a bunch of free agents left either at this time. We've gained 300 subscribers in the month of April. Let's get to 500 before the NFL draft. Tell your friends we will be live for this year's NFL draft. Whether it's the simulcast or me solo, we will be live for pretty much every single pick, even the ones where the Cowboys aren't picking in this year's NFL draft. Speaking of the draft, Bleacher Report back at it again. They had a fairly wild trade-up idea involving the Atlanta Falcons. Now, it was like a deal the Falcons couldn't say no to, and they couldn't say no to this offer. The Cowboys go up their first, their second, and their first next year to go up to pick number 8, which is a colossal trade-up here. I have thoughts, but let's hear what Bleacher Report has to say. The Cowboys should be looking to shore up deficiencies along their offensive line or on the edge in this year's draft, and they may not want to wait until 24 to do so. At number 8, they land a high-end contributor who can assist on a deep playoff run, something they needed following last year's stunning wildcard round exit. Dallas doesn't have many roster holes after consecutive 12-5 finishes. It should be happy coming away with someone like Joe Alt or Jared Verse, the top O-lineman and editor on the Bleacher Report department big board. So we have draft holes. What are you talking about there? There's a lot of them. Also, trading up for Jared Verse would be really stupid. I like the player, first-round grade. He's a fringe top 20 guy for me, though. He's a late first-round grade. If Joe Alt were there, like, okay, I get it. You're getting the best offensive lineman in this year's class and a top 5 player for me. This team is so light on draft picks. And to be clear, Bleacher Report, I need an offensive lineman, 1 if not 2, a running back, a linebacker. I need multiple defensive linemen to fill out my damn roster. I would love to draft a corner or a wide receiver if the value was right and the picks was there, but I need at least 2 or 3 starters in this year's draft. How am I doing that when I'm trading away all of that draft capital? And, oh, by the way, next year's first, which I might need for a quarterback. Doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't. I think it is more likely this team trades down than trades up. In fact, I like the idea a lot of trading down. I think with the way the board could fall, guy you take at 24 might be the same guy at 31, depending on who you want it to be, and you get extra draft assets. I would be on board with that idea. So will the Cowboys make a round 1 trade? 1 for yes, 2 for no. Go ahead and sound off in the comments section. Give some shout outs here, then hit the super chats that have come in. There we go. 1, 2, 1, 1, 2s from Woe Gambino, Vince, Ariel Cowboy, Noel, and Edward. There you go. Super chats coming in here. Again, $5 is the number to beat on largest individual super chat to pick a segment after Monday's live show. Ed says 2024 crash and burn, 2025 dump head coach and quarterback, use Trey money on free agents. This is also my problem with this theory. It's fine. It's a plan. What in the Cowboys' history of the last decade has shown that they will spend money on outside free agents? You might say, yeah, but the quarterback's cheap. So was Dak. And do you know what they did? They went into a rookie contract year with Dak Prescott, or a first-year contract year with Dak Prescott, saying, Allen Hurns and Cole Beasley, what could go wrong? Like, they'll do it again. They'll pay Lamb, pay Micah, let Cooks walk, and be like, Jalen Brooks, receiver 2, let's see what happens. I totally think that they would do that. Again, it works if you actually invest in the roster, but they don't spend the money to do it. Concerns me. Jimmy, I wouldn't like if you drafted a wide receiver, or DT, I think you mean, or wide receiver in the first. It would have to be the right player. I'm looking at how I have them ranked. I am high on Johnny Newton, and I'm pretty high on Brian Thomas Jr. There may or may not be a better player on the board for me than those two guys. I think Newton is going to be there. I don't think Brian Thomas Jr. will be there. But it is tough for me to see the Cowboys investing in back-to-back DTs. But you still need one. So if the linemen aren't there, it kind of makes sense. Big River breaks. Kamani Vidal in the 5th. I do like him. I have a sleeper tag on him in my draft notes. I've got him 5th/6th round. So pretty much in that range. I'm trying to see. He's 184 overall on my board. Cowboys' 5th round pick is at 174. It's talking about a 10-pick difference there. Not really much to differentiate from that standpoint. Well, there's plenty to like, but I think it's a good sleeper name. Maybe you get him in the 6th if you want to, but I would not be upset with it. Chris B, how about trading down in the 2nd rather than the 1st? Also on board with that. Especially if you if you really, really want that back, whether it's, for me, the top 3 guys are Benson, Wright, and Brooks, pretty all close to each other. Trade down and get one still with extra picks, get that 4th round pick back, I'm intrigued. I would really, really like that. Especially if you still get the guys, I throw my pen around. Especially if you still get the guy that you had in mind in the first place. As a reminder, the largest individual super chat today, which right now is just $5 from Marcus Arnold, gets to pick the segment, or at least a segment, I should say, on the next Monday's live show, so after the NFL draft. Get those super chats in here as we get set up for the second segment of today's live show. This edition of the Cowboys Report is made possible by Manscaped. 20% off and free shipping with code COWBOYS over at manscaped.com. Make sure your boys have looked the best they ever have with Manscaped. Today's show is a mock draft. This time from ESPN, a 7-round mock draft from Jordan Reed with trades. Now, I have yet to decide if I will do, on my final NFL mock draft on Wednesday, if I will do trades in that one. But ESPN's doing it, so I figured a great time to run through it there. We will have my final Cowboys mock draft for you on Wednesday. We will also be live throughout the entirety of the 2024 NFL Draft, so make sure you are subscribed. First, some notable round 1 picks. Brian Thomas at 15, J.C. Latham at 16, Byron Murphy to Cincinnati. Seattle trades down and takes Troy Politano, and Amarius Mims off the board at 21. So Dallas at pick 24 gets a call from Kansas City and trades down, getting back a 3rd and a 5th round pick. So big return back, pretty even return back, by the way. You get that late 3rd to kind of cover up for that lack of a 4th rounder, and a 5th rounder on top to move down to pick number 32. So of the notable picks off the board, and I do think this matters in terms of, hey, you moved down that far, there are some players you like that aren't available. A.D. Mitchell was the pick there by the Chiefs. Graham Barton at 25 was there. And given that he was a pre-draft visit for the Cowboys, I wonder if that is the ideal pick for Day. If they would actually move away from him. Might be one of the guys they stay for there. Chop Robinson, Johnny Newton, Tyler Guyton. This is also part of the issue. The whole world knows you need offensive line help. So what the Commanders did was jump up in front of you and steal that pick. Like they in theory sniped Guyton away, right? Like they jumped up and nabbed him, prevented you from being able to acquire him. So that's noteworthy because you might see that happen on an actual draft night. You get sniped because your needs are clear and obvious. So the pick then in round 1 in the ESPN mock draft was Jordan Morgan out of Arizona. Now, funnily enough, if you go back and look at some of our early mock drafts, we had Jordan Morgan on there. The red flag specifically for the Dallas Cowboys is the arm length. And that is an issue for a team that historically wants long-armed offensive linemen. That is not exactly Jordan Morgan's game. He's got sub-33-inch arms. Maybe he's your left guard, and in the end, you're filling up one of those holes there. Here's what Jordan Reed wrote on the pick. Dallas needs multiple starters on both sides of the ball after a quiet free agency period. The extra draft picks from our trade would help. The Cowboys can start by getting Morgan, a dependable blocker who has the ability to play tackle or guard. That gives Dallas options with Tyler Smith, who can play tackle or guard. Morgan has power to his game and can start day one in the NFL. I have a early second round grade on Jordan Morgan. He checked into the just inside the top 40 of my board. There was not very many offensive linemen who were still available when this pick happened. It was a little bit thin. I'll make note of the one player that I might have asterisks instead was Jackson Powers Johnson was there. That one is probably going to come down to the medical. And that, if the medical checks out, maybe he ends up being the pick in round 1 instead. So do you want to trade down in round 1? Y for yes, N for no in the comments section. We won't spend as much time on the picks around the Cowboys because there's more picks this time. Jonathon Brooks out of Texas. What a very original draft pick that I think we'll see a lot of in 7-round Cowboys mock drafts. Here's the pitch from ESPN. A running back finally comes off the board. It was the first one taken, by the way. It's one of the Cowboys' many needs. Tony Pollard signed in Tennessee, and Brooks has starter-level traits. A torn ACL ended his 2023 season early, but not before he broke 1,000 yards and scored 10 touchdowns. Also had 1 receiving touchdown, by the way, so you get that extra 11 total there. Had it not been for the injury, maybe he's in play in round 1. I think Rachaad White, hopefully a bit more efficient in the NFL, which might be an O-line issue. Comp is pretty decent there. It's the ACL red flag that just kind of concerns me a little bit. I don't think he's an elite power player, but he's 54th overall on my board, a second, third round grade, and that's exactly where the Cowboys are drafting in this scenario. You can call them what you want, knee knockers, golden nuggets, thigh slappers. Our friends over at Manscaped refer to them as the boys. I have a 2-year-old daughter, but every man is responsible for their 2 boys below the waist. And when your little guys have more hair than they need, trust Manscaped for all your grooming dreams. Boys need love too. So join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. Go to manscaped.com and use promo code COWBOYS for 20% off and free shipping. Them boys might not be back, but the boys are back in town with Manscaped. It's the lawnmower family. It's got the Lawnmower 3.0 Plus, the 4.0 Pro, and the 5.0 Ultra. That's 3 different ball trimmers, each one equipped with skin-safe technology, an LED spotlight, and unique features for different grooming needs. Get 20% off and free shipping with code COWBOYS over at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with code COWBOYS at manscaped.com. For the best your boys have ever looked, trust Manscaped. Round 3, the Cowboys get one of their defensive tackle spots filled. That is Mekhi Wingo out of LSU. And this was a fairly tough eval for me. I I am not nearly as high on him. I have a 5th-round grade on Mekhi Wingo. But first, the pitch and the pros from ESPN's Jordan Reed. Wingo's an underrated defensive tackle prospect and can be disruptive in multiple areas, and the Cowboys lost Hankins to free agency in the middle of their line. My player comp here, and you guys aren't going to like this, it's small Neville Gallimore. My issue is this. Does that sack production, do those pressure rate numbers, all below 8%, do those jump off the screen to you? It's like, oh yeah, there's a great pass rusher. My answer is no. He's a weird tweener for me. He doesn't even look like a defensive tackle. Looks like an edge rusher. That is not a defensive tackle body. The testing was great. He's a really good athlete. His coaches love him, but he didn't get after the passer, and he's 6 foot and change, 284. That's weird tweener stuff to me that tends to scare me. The other 3rd-round pick, we'll give some more Mike Zimmer help coming in. Cedric Gray, the linebacker out of UNC. In general, I have a tough time with this linebacker class after roughly the first 4 guys. Gray's linebacker 7 for me. He's inside my top 140, so like a round early-ish, but you're not going to have a 4th-round pick in this scenario. And there are things I like about Cedric Gray. Here's the pitch from ESPN's, again, Jordan Reed. Getting bigger and more instinctive at the linebacker should be a goal of this Cowboys team. It was a little undersized there last season, which contributed to the playoff loss to Green Bay. And Gray at 6'1", 234 would help address that. Actually 6'1.5", by the way. My issue here is I don't think the instincts are that elite. There are moments it's very good. He's a solid run defender, but I think when it's not kept clean around him, which is a concern for me specifically in Dallas, I get a little bit worried about how he's able to see things, etc. Good athlete overall, not elite. I gave him that early 4th/5th-round grade. There's of the guys on the board, there were not many that were left. Trevin Wallace was the one who stood out to me, so not a lot from that perspective. I thought the coverage stuff overall was it's a high completion percentage serve, but not a lot of big gains allowed. Broke up some passes. I think at times he just didn't quite see it the way I wanted to. But because this is kind of a weird linebacker class overall, I wouldn't be mad at Gray and just into the top 100. It's not that big of a reach with the available players. Plus, I might be a bit lower on him in the end. Now, one player I know I'm not lower on than most is Matt Lee, the 5th-round pick here for the Cowboys out of Miami. Another note here from Jordan Reed. With Tyler Biadasz now in Washington, the Cowboys are in search of a new center. Lee is a high-effort blocker who simply knows how to get the job done, even if it's in some unconventional ways. At 6'4", 301, he creates quick wins with his hands and understands leverage points. There's not much position flex here, which I think will cause issues. In terms of where he ends up going, I think he's kind of a center-only prospect at 70 snaps outside of center. But he's a center for me. I like Matt Lee a lot. In a class where I don't have a lot of day 3 sleepers, this is one of them. He's not the biggest guy, but he's above 300 pounds, although he might have played a bit below it there. He tested super well, and he didn't get beat very often. There's not a lot of he got his ass kicked on that rep. Good athlete. I don't think he's an elite power player. If you want more power, you're probably going to go in a different direction. He's a top 150 player for me in this year's class. Who is your favorite any round Dallas Cowboys draft target? Drop that player name for me in the comment section right now. The other 5th-round pick, I think we might have mentioned on another different pick here, was Javonte Jean-Baptiste out of Notre Dame. He was definitely better this year for the Fighting Irish than what we ever saw in his time at Ohio State. This is not someone I am particularly high on. He falls into the category that I don't like. You do need edge depth, make no mistake about it. You are very thin right now. But in general, I don't like older projects. 24 years old as a rookie, really good athletic ability, but limited production. I don't like taking older prospects. That's why he's a 7th-round grade for me. Cornelius Johnson out of Michigan. Again, this is it's funny. I do my comps as I look at my notes here, independent of the Cowboys specifically. But I will put Cowboys comps in there sometimes. My comp here is Bryce Butler. Almost 6'3", 212. Very good athletic ability, a 4.44, 40-yard dash, 37.5-inch vert. He just, in part because of the offense, didn't produce. The other big issue was in some of his team's biggest games, he wasn't really a factor. Combined 94 yards against Ohio State, Penn State, Bama, and Washington. I kind of don't like that very much. Isaiah Johnson is next up here out of Syracuse. This is actually one of the players that is on my get to if I have time list, and I typically don't end up getting to him. The reason why I didn't get to him, because I get good profiles overall, 6'3", 205, almost 33-inch arms. Cowboys love that. 4'6", 440. Visions of Nashawn Wright dancing in my head. I do have another sleeper that I was glad was the pick here out of Air Force. That is Trey Taylor, who, by the way, is the cousin of Ed Reed. Now, again, funny it's Cowboys comparisons here. The athletic comps are J.J. Wilcox and Matt Johnson. But 7th rounder, so it's different than, taking Matt Johnson super early. Really good ball production, really good athletic ability. We'll miss some tackles. I think the instincts are probably some stuff to work on because the range didn't match the testing, but he is more quicker than fast. I actually have a 5th-round grade on Trey Taylor, so I would love that pick in the 7th round. The ESPN mock draft sits like this. Jordan Morgan out of Arizona in round 1. Jonathon Brooks in round 2. Mekhi Wingo in the 3rd, along with Cedric Gray. Matt Lee and Javonte Jean-Baptiste in the 5th. Cornelius Johnson in the 6th, Isaiah Johnson in the 7th, and Trey Taylor also with that other 7th-round pick. So grade the ESPN mock draft. A, B, C, D, or F. Go ahead and sound off in the comments section. All right, so use hashtag Cowboys or Super Chat to get on the show. Let's hit OG rung tag as... Let's hit that as instead of the sub read. How about that in the mailbag? The $10 one that came in. I think that makes the most sense. Let me pull up my details on timing and stuff here. Oh boy, a lot of F's in there. Okay. Ecuador man doesn't like Wingo. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that one. I think that makes the most sense to me. Mock was rigged. It's funny. F for what the WTF. I do think if you're upset about the day 3 picks, you're fine. That's not something to be overly concerned about. It's day 3. 7th, too early for a back. Yeah, but they might do that. C-, C, C-, oh, fine. Get your mailbag questions in, folks, right now. Hashtag Cowboys or Super Chat to skip that line altogether. As a reminder, the largest Super Chat, individual Super Chat today, picks a segment for after the NFL draft. Does require to be within reason. Obviously not draft related. And you don't have to pick today. You can pick on Sunday, once the draft is done. We have a better feel for it there. Right now, OG rung tag is the lead with $9.99. So $10 flat is the number to take the lead on. Now, if you have not already, please check us out on Instagram at Cowboys Report IG. We have short form videos and, of course, some photos up there as well. Give us a follow at Cowboys Report IG. A super thanks to begin today's live show. Hey, Tom, how's the family? What's your feeling on center Hunter Norzad, Penn State? If we take Mims or another left tackle and Jackson Powers Johnson and Frazier, etc., are gone in the 2nd round. I have a 5th round grade on the Penn State centers. That would put them, If you get to the 5th round, he's there. I would have no complaints about going that route there. Is more position flex, by the way, than someone like Matt Lee, which might result in him getting drafted, a little bit earlier from that perspective. I believe, by the way, he was a fan of the Cowboys growing up too. So keep that in mind. From Ed, you got any sleeper QBs that you take a flyer on in the 7th? I got Devin Leary in the 7th. I got Milton in the 6th and Jordan Travis. I don't like those later day 3 quarterbacks. I think they're all kind of pretty mediocre. Because Rattler's not going to get there to the 7th. Pratt's not going to get there to the 7th. The other issue is this. Sure, it can be your new 3rd QB, whatever. In theory, you're probably going to have a new regime next year, right? Well, that new regime probably doesn't want to have the quarterback thrust upon, especially a backup there. And I think most of us want to give all those reps to Trey Lance, so you're kind of not giving him a lot of playing time, even in practice and stuff. So it kind of becomes, are you getting enough return on your investment? Ecuador Man AOG, let's say you don't take left tackle in the draft. Do you trust Becton or do you move Tyler? So this kind of comes down to assuming you take a left guard or a center, or maybe let's say you take a center in round 1 or wherever. Do I trust Mekhi Becton or do I touch TJ Bass more? Becton was pretty bad last season. So it's a little of half a dozen of one, 6 of the other. But I might be more inclined to just put Tyler Smith at left tackle and give TJ Bass a shot at left guard. I also wouldn't be mad if they just brought in Becton anyway and said, let's have a 3-man competition for 2 spots. It's not the worst idea. It's doing something at least, but I think I would trust, I hate to say it, maybe they just like their guys, and that is the best path there. From Mighty Ant 0215 again, protest in front of the Star. Who is down? The vibes are bad right now around this Cowboys organization. I can't say I blame anyone either. Are you mad at the Dallas Cowboys over their offseason so far? Y for yes, N for no. Go ahead and sound off for me at the pinned comment of today's show. That's Y for yes, N for no. Roy Williams, again, I ask which one. Draft Josh Cephas in the 5th round. The height and speed is insane. So it's not. The height's good. He's 6'2", 193, but he ran a 4.58 40 at his pro day. The shuttle and 3-cone numbers weren't particularly great. I think there might have been some false info out there about how well he tested. This could be a great UDFA to bring in. Out of UTSA, that could be the route the Cowboys end up pursuing there. Eddie Joe, who are the best prospects not invited to the Combine? Oh, it's a good question. I don't think Christian Boyd was a Combine invite. I think Blake Watson out of Memphis was a non-Combine invite. Trying to look at my other names on this list here. Let's see. I'm forgetting one more guy that I liked. I think I get named a monitor as a deep sleeper is probably Giovanni Manu out of British Columbia, who the Cowboys brought in. But I'm pretty sure Christian Boyd was a non-Combine invite. I think Blake Watson was also a non-Combine invite out of Memphis. Chris B., Cowboys draft going to be wild because why not? Historically, they draft well, but also understandable if we don't trust them with the way the offseason has gone so far. Today's Cowboys Report is made possible by Game Time. Game Time is the place for last-minute tickets to your next big event. Prices tend to drop as the events get closer, but it can be a little bit anxiety-inducing to have to wait and wonder if you're going to get the best deal. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets, especially when they are last minute. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. That's code CHAT SPORTS, Chat Sports, for $20 off. They've got exclusive flash deals, sponsored deals for football, basketball, and of course concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Maybe depending on how the Mavs end up playing, you can find a nice deal for Game 3. Maybe you can get decent tickets for the Stars. Playoff hockey is not nearly as expensive as playoff NBA is. So again, link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. From Vince, how much are you willing to pay to trade up for an elite tackle prospect if one falls out of the top 10, first, second, and third? Now, from the trade value chart perspective, let me make sure my math is right on this one here. I think to give up all three of those picks, frankly, I think you're committing a fairly sizable overpay. Those three picks combined should be able to get you roughly into the top 10. Now, if Joe Alt's there at 10, maybe it starts to make a little bit of sense, but I have so many needs, I can't give up all of those picks. I'm almost more inclined to move up and trade a future second and keep my second this year to go get somebody. That might be more appealing to me because I need those picks this season. From Joey, Tavondre Sweat is there at 174. Are you taking him? At that point, I do think the risk would or the reward would outweigh the risk involved. There are going to be teams who have Sweat off their board. He checked in at 100 in the end for me because that was already a concern. I saw it just casually dismisses. Oh, you like to party? Well, yeah, but a college student who went to parties. I'm like, no, but more than that, guys. It was that he wasn't fully locked in and committed because he was partying. It's not that he went to the occasional frat party. It's that this was a real concern for teams, and he told them he was over his partying ways, and then he gets a DWI. So he could go anywhere from round 2 to round 5, or even longer. Wouldn't shock me. If he's there at 174, I'm in. From Jeremy, will Dallas draft a quarterback early, and if so, what will you do? The first thing is I will be very surprised because there's been the Cowboys are not they don't hide their intentions. They're we have almost the entire 30-visit list out. We know all of the quarterbacks who they met with at the Combine. Cowboys weren't on those lists. So if Dallas was able to hide their intentions from everybody, I'll actually give them credit for pulling that off. Be a very un-Cowboys-esque move. It would, in theory, be Penix or Bo Nix, and I don't have top 50 grades on those guys. Penix is 64th, and Bo Nix is 86 for me. Be like, that's a reach. Half-round grade or full-round grade boost. Okay, we're in range there, I guess, for positional value. But I'd be like, okay, I'm surprised. Find out what I would have done. This is the new franchise quarterback. That's how I would approach it. And I refer to early as round 1. Bo Nix in the second would be kind of interesting to me. Third, I thought he gets there anyway. Pratt in the third, or Rattler in the third. It's really? Will the Cowboys draft a quarterback early? 1 for yes, 0 for no. Sound off in the comments section. From Wes, how about the linebackers from Ohio State? Double dip at O-line and linebacker. I don't mind that idea. That's also 4 of your 7 picks, so you're a little bit thin from that perspective. I've got Tommy Eichenberg in the 4th/5th. I am not as high on him as others. I get a little bit anxious about the way he moves, though he did test pretty well. And then Steel Chambers, elite name, but I didn't love the production. It kind of falls in the older project category. I'd be in the 7th round. From Rudy, Cowboys will have no contract offer from Dak until they see Lance in the preseason. It's not the most outlandish theory. I think that trying to judge and determine if this is your next franchise QB based on preseason versus backups is probably a bad idea. But then again, it's not like the Cowboys' plan has been good anyway, so I suppose I can't put it past them. The real issue is that, if Lance looks good, that's not really leverage for Dak to take less because his leverage comes from other teams. you know? From Ryan Kennedy, would you trade Micah and some future picks for Surtain/picks? I'm in pretty good shape at corner. I probably would not. I just think like you're trading one elite young player for another elite young player, but you didn't have a massive cornerback need in the first place, and now you have a gaping edge need. I don't think it makes enough sense for me. From OG Rungtag, what time are y'all starting your coverage on Thursday? I'm going to be upset for the Jones boys for this draft. So the Chat Sports coverage, youtube.com/chatsports TV, will be at 2 hours before the NFL draft begins, so 6 p.m. Eastern time. Our coverage, the simulcast, and eventually just me on screen for the Cowboys kind of midway through the first round, that's going to begin 30 minutes before the draft, so should be right around 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you are subscribed and turn your notifications on. You will get the 30-minute advanced warning that we will be going live then. So subscribe. Make sure those noties are turned on. Steven GX, my draft has Falatanu at 24, Wilson at 56, Wright at 87, McCaffrey at 176, Brennan Jackson at 216, Keith Randolph at 233, Matt Lee at 244. I'm checking my personal board, but I believe that, yes, outside of slightly Keith Randolph, a little bit lower, but yeah, it's fine. There's not a huge gap there in terms of I had a 6th, 7th grade on him. Every player there you got after I have them ranked. So I like that pick. I like that plan a lot. Chris Romero, doesn't seem like the most likely trade. Trade down, take O-lineman end of round 1, then highest available RB in round 2. BPA in the third round on a linebacker, D-line corner, or another O-line. Wouldn't be surprised if that's the route that they went. It does depend on what linemen are there. Like if there's a clear-cut guy that's O-lineman in round 1, they're probably going to stand pat and take it. If all the top guys go off the board that they wanted, and it's like you've got, Sumatai, Frazier, and Guyton all there, then I think maybe JPJ too, then a trade down makes all the sense to work because one of those 4 will probably be there for you. But it just depends on how the board falls. Last one again from Ed. 2 more, I guess. Chris B just came in the super. How about a mock where baby Olivia makes the picks? Maybe I'll try to film it with the draft sim and have her pick one. Who knows if that would actually work. Thanks. That's a good idea, though, Ed. I appreciate it. And Chris B., who is your round 1 prediction right now? I don't know if he's going to be there, but I'm going to go with Graham Barton. He might not make it that far, but if teams don't view him as a tackle and they view him as an interior player only, then I think he might get outside the top 19, and then you're a couple picks away. So, again, I don't have a great feel because you're picking so far back of round 1. My guess last year was Will McDonald. He went too early. I don't know what's going to happen this time in 2024. Who do you think the Cowboys will end up drafting? Go ahead and sound off for me in the comment section right now. Nice thought, Chris. What is your excitement level for the 2024 NFL Draft? Scale it from 1 to 10. Madman says Barton will be gone by the Steelers pick. See, I would not be surprised if that was their pick. They could also go wide receiver. Wouldn't shock me that much. But if Barton's gone, then I think that the tackles are also probably gone. And it's like, is you picking Guyton, you picking Sumatai, you picking Frazier. I think Jackson Powers-Johnson will be there with some medical questions, but is he even on the Cowboys board? And that's kind of how you get into the, those top guys are gone. Those, our most of our top 24 picks at needs are gone. Trade down starts to be very appealing. But you also know a team like Washington knows you want to tackle. They might jump in front of you. Kind of the dangerous things you're juggling with. From that perspective. So I myself am always at a 10. Excited to see how things pan out from that perspective. Double O Sports. Troy Franklin is there at 56. Do you take him? he would be one of the best players on my board. By the way, this is hilarious. In my top 100, I have 19 wide receivers. This receiving class is so good. It's kind of why I wish I had a fourth, because I'm like, I can just get somebody there. And then it kind of gets a little thin after that, at least for me. I like the receiver class. Troy Franklin, I've got in my top 50, I have 13 wide receivers. I love it. There's so many good guys. And that means players will be pushed down. Means it's going to happen, at least relative to my board. So I'd be all for it. Madman wants Burton round 2. I have a third on him. Do wonder he could. I'd see him going in round 2. I could also see him falling to the 4th round if the coaches' reviews didn't come back well, which might be a concern there. Ecuador Man says Polk in the 4th. I have him in the 2nd. I really like Jalen Polk. If I give him in the 4th, I'm all for it. I got McMillan in the 3rd even. I like those Husky wide receivers. I thought they all played really well this past season. Also explains why I'm not as high on Michael Penix. I thought the receivers did more of the work. Chris B., wide receiver, rounds 1 to 3, don't care, load the clip. Again, I would love to get a receiver in the 3rd, but I've got 0, maybe 1 or 2 starting caliber backs, probably maybe a half starting caliber back given his injury history with Rico Dowdle. I've got 2, at least 1 glaring holes on the offensive line. I can survive for a year with Jalen Tolbert as wide receiver 3. I can survive because I have Fergie and I can get my backs involved too. I can use gadget stuff for Kevontae Turpin. I can't survive right now with my offensive line, my running backs, and I would argue my defensive line. That's what I hate about this. You could have signed players and then just gone best player available. And if there's a scenario where one of the Keon Colemans of the world are there for you in the 2nd round. I'd love to be able to take that luxury pick. Or Ryan Thomas is there in the 1st round. I would love to have that as an option. I don't know if that's going to be the case. And maybe someone gets pushed down to round 5. Should I take Luke McCaffrey there? Be intriguing. Maybe one of the receivers falls into the 4th round. You get a 4th round pick and take one there. I would like to get one. I just don't know if you're going to have the luxury to do so because you didn't do anything in free agency. Now, as a reminder, the final call for this, the largest super chat individual super chat picks a segment for us on today's live show after the NFL draft. After. So it'll be non-draft focused there, of course. Right now, OG Rungtag has the lead with a $9.99 super chat. So $10 flat would get to pick Monday's live segment. Final call on that as we get set up for the final segment of today's show. With the NFL draft, it's almost hours away now at this point, we're breaking down the Cowboys' top draft targets for round 1. Kind of realistic looks at some of the top names, an attempt at how the Cowboys' big board might look, knowing it's not going to be right because every team's board is different. Also, this was the segment that Dwayne Jackson picked for winning last week's Super Chat battle. Now, if you want my final NFL mock draft for the Dallas Cowboys, the 7-round version on Wednesday afternoon, help us out by sharing today's video right now. The first thing I'll do here is run this through different tiers of groups of players, spend some time on them. Then at the end, I'll kind of break it down in terms of ranks as best as possible. First group of players is they ain't going to be there. Tier 1 prospects that aren't going to be there. J.J. McCarthy's not a Tier 1 prospect for me, but he's not going to be there, so we'll just put him in there. Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Caleb Williams, Joe Alt, Roma Dunze, Drake May, Brock Bowers, Dallas Turner, especially those first 8 names, plus Jaden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy. You could also call them the felony board, where the only way they get to you at 24 is if a felony had been committed. Daniels and McCarthy. Maybe there's a Will Levis 2.0 scenario that makes you reevaluate. But if those guys get to you at 24, means you probably don't want to take them because something went terribly wrong. All right, this next batch of 4, I'm going to call it the offensive line dreaming group. Players I don't think would be there. That's Taliese Fuaga out of Oregon State, Olu Fashanu out of Penn State, or Fashanu, excuse me, J.C. Latham for Alabama, and Troy Falatanu out of Washington. Now, of note with Troy, Albert Bree reporting some teams flagged his knee. So maybe he is in for a little bit of a draft slide. Maybe he's not. He was higher on this list originally, and he's higher on my board that was finalized before that news came out. But I would be a little surprised if any of these guys got to you at 24. If they did, whether they're your left tackle or your left guard, I think they could do all those those holes or play those positions. I think you'd be excited about having that guy available. I'm just not going to get my hopes up for it. The defensive surprise category. Quinyon Mitchell, Byron Murphy, Terrion Arnold, Jared Verse, Liatu Latu. Top defensive prospects who I think aren't going to be there for you in round 1. But if they were, maybe you start to reconsider and go, well, this is just the best player on my board. And that's the route we choose to go down. And we say, we'll take the best player in the end. 3 names here are on the top realistic offensive line targets. They may not be there, or there's something wrong with them. First up is Graham Barton out of Duke. And if Barton is there at 24, I don't know if he will. A team like the Dolphins or Steelers and maybe Philadelphia picking in front of you, all of those teams could very much be in the market for the left tackle turned left guard or center. So that would be a very much a area to monitor. But if Barton is there, given the athletic ability, given the position flex, I think Dallas would have a tough time trading away from him. So if he's there, that would be my guess on the pick. But it is a guess because who knows if he's going to be there. Who do you think the Dallas Cowboys end up drafting in round 1? Go ahead and sound off for me in the comment section of today's video. Next up for me is Amarius Mims. And he was, to my knowledge, not a pre-draft visit for the Dallas Cowboys. So again, that will raise some concerns. Has some medical stuff that must be vetted to a certain extent. Similar boats, especially for the next guy on this list, but also kind of sort of Graham Barton, who missed time with injury this past year. I can play left tackle. He also might not be there for you, but that'd be like my personal favorite pick. Doesn't mean the Cowboys feel the same way, though. Jackson Powers-Johnson is next up here. And this one is a big asterisk. We saw last year the Cowboys bring in a variety of players, including but not limited to Darnell Washington. And despite bringing Washington in for a pre-draft visit, they did not take him. And the reason being was medical. And there are concerns right now about the medical for Jackson Powers-Johnson. I have heard an alleged hip tear. Hip issue in general is a concern there. Hamstring pull at the Senior Bowl. Groin issues this year as well. Multiple concussions over the course of his NFL career, or collegiate career, or at least concussion concerns. So that's kind of like, hey, asterisks on that front. If the medical checks out, you can argue he's the best center in the class. But he might not feel the same way as me. The Cowboys might not feel that way. So asterisks, but a clear interest player from that perspective. All right, the fallback offensive line targets who could also be trade down candidates here. Now, over another name or two we'll get to, I'll give the edge to Kingsley Suamataia out of BYU because we know he was a 30 visit. There are maybe 1 or 2 or 3 unknown 30 visits, but we know for a fact this is one of them. He tested really, really well. He checks off all the size stuff the Cowboys like. He's got long arms, but he's also kind of raw. I think the hand placement gets off at points. At times, he doesn't see things that well. He's also 21. He's played both sides of the offensive line as well. So unlike another tackle we will get to, I trust him playing on the left side a little bit more. Cowboys did not meet with Zach Frazier out of West Virginia, but I would be all for that pick, especially in a trade down scenario. Like, trade down to 31, take your center. Sound familiar? Frazier is, if you want some more toughness on your offensive line, if you want a little bit more dog in your offensive line, that's Zach Frazier. The athletic ability is more good than great, but he is intelligent. And I think you could use that in the center. So Frazier in the end checked in at 31 overall on my board. So I would not be upset. Sorry, 34. If they took him, especially in a trade down scenario. Tyler Guyton, this is one of the prospects I struggled the most with. I get the intrigue. Really great athlete, moves well, upside off the charts, but he also just is raw. You don't find almost 6'8" people that are 322 and 34-inch arms very frequently. It's a high upside offensive tackle, but you need to be a little bit patient because there are downsides to be worried about here. Footwork and leverage were not very good too often. I think the feel for playing offensive line is not great. In a normal offensive class, this guy could easily go top 20. He still might. But in this loaded class, he's just a second-round grade for me. He cracked my top 32, but that's because once I get to the top 25, I don't like my early round 2 picks that much. I got to put somebody there, but I'm not in love with them, if that makes sense. Jordan Morgan out of Arizona, who I think specifically for Dallas is probably even a little bit lower than I would have him. I like Jordan Morgan. It's a second-round grade for me. He's in my top 40. I think he's overall a very quality prospect, but especially when it comes to drafting tackles. The Cowboys' history is they really want 33 and more 34-inch arm guys, and Jordan Morgan's under that. However, they liked Matthew Bergeron a lot last year, and I get Matthew Bergeron vibes from Jordan Morgan. Some other non-offensive line fallback options here. Brian Thomas Jr., which might just be a stand pat and take one there. I think they're okay with Nate Wiggins' lack of size. Edgerrin Cooper is like your worst case scenario. Screw it. No one wanted to trade up. There's no good lineman. We'll take our top-rated linebacker this year. They also met with him pre-draft. I'd love to give him in round 2. I am a huge fan of Kool-Aid McKinstry, even with the foot fracture. He is a top 25 player for me, so he'd be among the best on the board when the Cowboys are on the clock. I think he'd be a great fit for Mike Zimmer. Medical more, maybe the Cowboys aren't interested there. They brought in Darius Robinson for a visit. That's a tough player for me. Real tweener vibes. I love Johnny Newton. I'm not sure Dallas will. Chop Robinson is, again, I got a second-round grade on him, but I don't know where to put him because the first step is unreal. It's the rest of it makes you go, I don't know. And then Cooper DeJean, kind of like inside my top 30, and I don't know if he's a great fit for the Cowboys, but I wanted to mention him there. Now, we'll get to the ranked big board here momentarily, but the official NFL draft hat, the one you will see Cowboys players wearing when they are picked, is available at chatsports.com/Cowboys draft hat. It's via Fanatics. Check out the link because you can kind of see it more on the Navy hat than the smoke hat, where it's kind of got a little 3D effect. I think you'll want to zoom in and look at it and not just kind of rely on your phone screen to see it there. So go check it out. Chatsports.com/Cowboys draft hat. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. So then, let's rank the Cowboys big board. We'll go quick here. As best as I think the Cowboys might have it, knowing full well it's not going to be right. There are things that are wrong, but I'm trying here. And plus, they'll take guys off for medical and stuff we didn't even know about. Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Joe Alt, Rome Odunze, Dallas Turner. Them boys ain't going to be there. I think because they brought Taliesin Fuaga in for a visit probably means he's high on their board. So I'll put him at 6 over somebody like Brock Bowers, who he's not going to get there. Much like the Kyle Pitts, Penei Sewell conversation, where people are like, could Pitts fall? And I was like, he's not going to, but the tackle might, and he almost did. Maybe Olu Fashanu fits that mold this year. And again, I don't think he's going to be there. I could see him getting out of the top, maybe 13, 14 picks. He's very high on my board. Plug him in at left tackle. That is my pipe dream selection, but I think it is more of a pipe dream. I'll put J.C. Latham at 9 here over Troy Fautanu with, again, emphasis on the offensive lineman because that's the bigger concern right now for Dallas. In part because of the now knee issue for Fautanu that has been reported by Albert Breer, that it got flagged, and if he slides, that's why. Maybe he doesn't slide at all. Seattle stands out as a good fit for him. I'm curious where Latham goes. Could go to the Chargers if they trade down. That would make a lot of sense for people, I think. But I think you're playing both at guard or maybe Fautanu at left tackle. I don't think Latham can play left tackle. I think Fautanu could, though. So will the Cowboys go offensive line in round 1? That's certainly the expectation. Maybe the Cowboys surprise everybody. Y for yes, N for no. Some other players, again, I don't think most of these guys get there. I'm going to go Quinyon Mitchell here at number 11. I think he's off the board top 20 pretty easily there. Graham Barton is going to be 12 for me. And the last couple years, I think I had a good feel for what the pick would have been if the guy they had wanted had gotten there. I think if McDonald had been there, they would have picked him. That was my final mock draft pick. If Sir Tanner Horn was there, that was going to be picked over Micah Parsons. Didn't happen that way. I would wonder if because of the way they like offensive linemen position flex and more, if Barton ends up being the guy and could maybe slide, because if teams don't think he can play tackle, it's not going to be as valuable. Now, maybe he gets sniped by the Steelers or something. That wouldn't be a surprise either. And as long as the medical checks out, knee sprain, had shoulder surgery, I would not be mad at this pick at all. I don't think Byron Murphy gets to you, but he is higher on this version for the Cowboys board because he was a known pre-draft visit. So I will lean more on those in these ranks here. Terrion Arnold at 14. Again, I doubt he's there, but top-tier corner. Amarius Mims, I wouldn't be shocked if they went in a different direction because they might not know if he could play left tackle. So Mims and a couple other guys on this list, I'm going to asterisk. And also there are medical concerns with Mims. He's missed a bunch of time, in part because of injuries. So that has to be vetted as well. He would be higher on this list had he been a pre-draft visit. The final Cowboys mock draft will come on Wednesday, and we will be live for the entire NFL draft on Thursday and Friday and Saturday. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. Jared Verse here at 16 because, I'm plugging in. I got to find the spots for the defensive guys at some point. And I don't think he's going to be there either. And I didn't want this to be all the offensive linemen in a row. The next two players on this list, led by Jackson Powers Johnson and Latu, carry large asterisks, medical concerns. Does Jackson Powers check out medically? If he does, would not be surprised at all if he was the selection, and I'd be all for it. If the medicals don't check out, Dallas might pass on him, just like they did with some players last year. Latu, again, medical concerns there. If he's available, probably means the medical didn't check out for some teams. You could even flip Brian Thomas and Jared Verse if you wanted to. I don't think he's going to be there, but that is one to consider. I think if the Cowboys were doing a pure board and not adjusting as they very well might for positional need, I could see Nate Wiggins being pretty high up on that list. I think he fits a lot of the things Mike Zimmer likes in a corner despite being pretty damn skinny. But there's man coverage ability, there's size, speed, outside like height and length to an extent as well, but not the weight. Speed and effort. I think that Zimmer would like him. And if the O-line is picked over, I think there is a universe that exists where Wiggins is the top player on their board, if he's there. 21. And we'll do 22 together here. Kingsley Suamataia and Tyler Guyton. I have Guyton narrowly ahead of him over Kingsley on my actual board. I gave the slight edge to Suamataia because we know he's a 30 visit. And that's not to say Dallas will only draft players on their 30 visit list, but they normally do, at least in round 1 in particular. So I'm going to give, in terms of the Cowboys, and this is, I think, ideally a trade down scenario anyway, I'll put Suamataia on there. So pick an offensive tackle. KS for Kingsley Suamataia or TG for Tyler Guyton. Both fit the raw, athletic, but need help offensive tackles. Another offensive lineman is Zach Frazier out of West Virginia. I love his game. I think, again, this is probably, I think a lot of these guys on, like, this section right here, from 21 to 24, which also includes Edrin Cooper, and even 25, which is Darius Robinson as well. That's the linemen we wanted were gone, or we had them off the board medically, so we traded down, or we had to pick somebody because there were no good trade offers. Like, that's what this group might be here. Maybe the order probably ends up being different a little bit, but, like, that is what I think the, like, bad scenario for 24 options are. Tackles are gone. You know, top players are gone. There were only 4 quarterbacks. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. That's the order they end up going in. Jordan Morgan, 26 for me. Arm length, I think, is a negative for Dallas, but I do like his game. The next 2 names I am big fans of. Kool-Aid McKinstry and Johnny Newton, 27, 28. They'll be high on my board, and they might be among the top defensive players. Chop Robinson, number 29 overall. Again, the freaky athlete, but where's your production? It scares me. Kind of like Odafe way, but I don't love, once you have like the top 20 players, I'm like, I am anxious here, and Robinson fits that mold. Finally, I'll throw in Cooper DeJean. We're 30 picks with none of the top 4 quarterbacks on here, so you'll have other options instead. And maybe there's a surprise guy. It's like a Patrick Paul or something wild that we did not see coming. On the surprise point, by the way, and it was like, well, what if Penix is there? A conversation you should have in your war room, because you don't have your quarterback under contract for next season. In fact, no quarterbacks under contract for next season. But the Cowboys have shown no interest. They've not met with anybody that we know of. So, and that's very much against their MO, especially if you're drafting a quarterback in the first round and you don't meet with them. That'd be kind of wild. So I would be very surprised if they took a quarterback in round 1. I'd be shocked, and then I'd support that guy because that would be your new franchise QB. Last call here. The largest super chat picks a segment after the NFL draft. Looks like that's going to be OG Rungtag. So OG, email me, tom@chatsports.com if you haven't already. And we'll get that figured out in terms of what you want for the Monday after the draft. If you want to wait till Sunday to pick it, that's fine too. Just email me so we can get set up and in contact there. So OG Rungtag wins. He picks the segment for next Monday's, live show. Are you mad at the Cowboys over their offseason? Y for yes, N for no. Richard says they meet with Mozzie last year. So they did. That one was kind of like, I think you can go back and look at the video. It was like, asterisks were like, we don't know. Because they were still doing like Zoom meetings and stuff. And like, Rappaport's phrasing was like unclear if it was a 30 visit or like a meeting after his pro day, whatever. But they did meet with Mozzie, and they brought him into the building, and the players all loved him. And they like to draft players off that 30 visit list because ownership gets to meet with them. That's what they like to do. So are you mad over the offseason? Y for yes, N for no? I am mad. It's been very disappointing. They have to get this draft right or they're in trouble. As a reminder, we will be live for the 2024 NFL Draft. Do not miss out. Hit that sub button for more free Cowboys YouTube videos. We will have live draft coverage. We will have grades. We will have UDFAs on Sunday for you. Don't miss out. Hit that sub button right now.